Hello, Channel 22 viewers, and welcome to another session of Eye on Education, all things educational in the town of Montville. My name is Dave Rowley. I'm the chair of the Montville School Board. And my guest today is Allison Peterson, who is the newly named principal of Mohegan Elementary School. Thank you for coming on the set today, Allison.
Thank you for
appreciate
having
you
me.
coming over. And this is just an interview. It's going to be pretty close to probably a job interview that I will put before you. In as much as your job interview for the Mohegan principalship was just a few months ago, this is going to sound pretty similar probably.
Okay.
Because I'm working off of what you had presented to the search committee as a resume.
Yes.
So I'll be using some of that in our interview today.
Okay.
So what I'd like to do is have the folks who are watching this program know a little bit about your upbringing.
Sure.
Where in the United States did you do your elementary school and that kind of thing? Could we start there?
Sure.
All
we
right.
can start
Go
there.
ahead.
I'm actually a native of Connecticut. I was born and raised, born in Meriden, Connecticut, raised sort of in the Litchfield Hills until about second grade. And then my family moved to Somers, Connecticut, where I spent from third grade until eighth grade. And then my dad was transferred. He was a banker, transferred up to the Berkshires. And I lived in Stockbridge, where I spent my high school years. Went to college, Clark University in Worcester. So I'm pretty much a New England native. That's why I'm so happy to be back here.
Well, that's excellent. You know the area quite well then, having
Yes.
grown up around this area.
Yes.
But you did some of your education maybe down in Maryland, I understand.
Well, my education was actually here. So I did my undergrad in Worcester. We lived here. I was living in Maryland for 5 years previously.
I see.
But before that, I was living 9 years up in Pomfret, Connecticut. During that time is when I completed my master's at Sacred Heart. So I'm a Sacred Heart graduate. I did my own 92 there.
And which is the certificate you need for the job you're in right
Exactly.
now, 092.
Exactly.
People out there may not recognize the
terminology. Sure, sure.
092 would allow you to be a principal in an elementary school, probably a middle school
Yes.
as well.
Up in, it actually covers up to assistant superintendent.
It
the
does.
092.
And 093 would be necessary to be a superintendent. Is that how it works?
Yes, that's how it works.
Excellent.
Yes.
Well, now some of your educational background in the classroom, that is, were in grades 3, 5, and 6.
Yes.
Could you tell us about your experiences in those 3 grades?
Yes. Here in Connecticut, I started as a 6th grade teacher at Brooklyn Middle School. It's when we were still self-contained, so I taught all subject areas to that same group of kids, except math. Math is when we did flexible grouping. Then I went to Mansfield, where I taught 3rd grade, all subject areas. When I moved to Maryland, I was fortunate to get into a highly gifted center where I taught 5th grade math and science. The reason I got into that, there were actually 2 openings when I interviewed for that position. One was sort of a language arts, social studies, social sciences. The other was math and science. I felt that I had strengths in the language arts, social studies area, and really where I probably needed more growth is math and science. So when they gave me the choice, I opted for math and science, even though it was outside of my comfort zone. I just felt it was going to make me a better educator.
I can relate to the science part of it because
Yes.
that was my career, science here at Montville High School.
The interesting thing about that position, I think it really opened my eyes. It was gifted education. I was dealing with 5th graders who were working academically at a 7th or 8th grade level. So I was teaching 7th and 8th grade math to 5th graders, yet developmentally they're still very much 5th graders. So I sort of had to bridge that gap, giving them things that were appropriate to the 5th grade developmental stage, but also really pushing them with the rigorous kind of academics. I learned quite a bit. These are kids that sometimes you walk into the class and they know more than you do about certain subjects. So you have to go with what they know, and so much part of my class was us back and forth, them teaching me teaching them, adjusting to their needs.
And was this in Germantown?
This was actually in Potomac, Maryland,
Potomac,
when
Maryland.
I first started. That's before I went into the administration.
which was Germantown, I take it.
It was.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
Okay.
I noted that you were an assistant principal
Yes.
in a middle school or elementary school?
Elementary school.
All right.
We were K through 5, 650 kids, a very diverse population. We were almost 33, 33, 33 with Hispanic students, African American students, and white Asian students. So that was a great time for me, you know, learning about diversity and the different needs of different cultures, and being in a school system where it was so dynamic. Yes.
And that was a good preparation, I would imagine, for what you're doing now at Mohegan Elementary School, which is extremely multicultural.
Yes, yes.
So let's move into some other areas of what brought you to Mohegan School. I noticed that you had worked with school improvement plans.
Definitely.
And we're big into that here in Montville, that's
Yes.
for certain. Is what you did in Maryland in the way of school improvement plans similar to what you see going on here?
Yes. I entered into what we call a leadership development program in Maryland. We're a very big county. I think we're over 200 schools in the county system. So it's very different than a district system here. So it's run by the Montgomery County. Because of that, they have to make sure their leaders are all developed in a very similar way. So we're given the same knowledge over a 3-year period so that we can walk into any school and be able to run that school.
That's interesting.
And it made it very interesting because I felt it was a very comprehensive program, not as specific as what you would be doing here in Montville, because they couldn't be town specific because the county was so big. But I felt that they gave me, you know, kind of a little bit of everything, the exposure to what I needed to take my leadership to any school. So as far as the school improvement plan, it was very much established. Every year we looked at it, we had a leadership team, we met in the summer before school started and really sat down and looked at what are the needs of our school, what are the testing results showing us, what subgroups, because that was a very important piece for us.
I understand.
What subgroups do we really have to focus on to close the achievement gap? That was a huge part of what we were seeing at my school specifically.
Montgomery County? Was
Yes,
that the county?
yes.
And that's pretty close to Washington, D.C.,
Right
isn't it?
outside of Washington, D.C.
So did you have, is it within the Beltway or outside the?
Yeah, within the belt, a little bit off the beltway.
Okay, but in that vicinity.
Yes, very much.
So you had, yeah, a pretty diverse grouping there, I would imagine.
Very
from
much.
very wealthy to maybe not so wealthy.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
Excellent. Let's talk a little bit about your experience with measuring and monitoring student achievement, because of course with Common Core here and coming in big here in
Yes.
Montville as well as Connecticut, throughout the nation actually, we're tying student achievement to teacher abilities,
Yes.
teacher proficiencies. You have some experience there too, I noted.
I do.
And you're ready to jump right into Mohegan School?
Oh.
And now, I understand that, I'm not really sure about all of this, that teachers are being evaluated more often than
Yes.
they used to be in the past.
Yes,
Whereas a teacher might have been evaluated once or twice in a given year, and now it's much more numerous that they're evaluated and to be able to be moving the children along in their achievement. Are you comfortable with all of that and moving into that?
yeah, I am comfortable. I think what it does is it gives a sense of accountability and a yearly sense of accountability instead of, you know, every 5 years. We want teachers looking at their goals every year. We want them looking at assessment and how that drives instruction. That's best practice. I think what our system, the Marzano system is doing, is just making the accountability piece, you know, putting it on us and on the teachers. There is a level of discomfort with that because a teacher that's used to seeing an administrator in a formal evaluation once every 5 years is now going to see me 3 times a year, and probably more so. The way I've handled the discomfort is, first of all, breaking it down so it's very manageable. I'm not too far out of the classroom, so I still sort of have that teacher hat that I refer to quite often. Like, I want to think about it in terms of what do my teachers need in order to process this. I made sure the first month of school, they saw me a lot in the classroom. So it's not a new thing that all of a sudden I go in with a clipboard or my laptop in this case. And that's uncomfortable for them. I want them to be comfortable with the fact that I'm going to be in the classrooms whether I'm evaluating you or not. I want to see what you're doing. I want to see what the kids are doing. And that goes for the recess lunch. I'm just visible. I just want to be there. Mm-hmm. I think with them getting used to that, now when I start, and I've started this the last couple weeks, when I start going in a more evaluative framework, I think they're more comfortable with it. I'm also having quite a few one-on-one conversations. And I started that even before we were goal setting, because that's what we're doing right now. We're sitting down with teachers and setting their professional and performance goal. But before that happened, I started sitting down with grade levels. And I started saying, these are my expectations. So nothing's a surprise. Nothing's a gotcha. And I think that's what helps ease us through a process that is very challenging right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, it sounds like you're moving into your position very smoothly, and that's a wonderful thing.
Right, it feels good.
You feel good about it?
I feel good at Mohegan. I think it was a great, what you were saying before, that I moved into probably one of the more diverse schools that in Montville, was a perfect fit. And I felt that when I interviewed, that I'm coming from a very diverse school. I would love to go into another diverse school. And that I found that at Mohegan was just great for me.
It's a perfect fit.
Perfect fit.
Now, are there still some children down at Mohegan that where English is a second language?
Oh, sure.
There's plenty of them, I would imagine.
Yeah, we have, I think, 46 ELL students.
Okay.
That
46.
changes, of course, every day because we get new registrations every day.
Sure.
26 of those students are Tibetan students, which I think is a really interesting dynamic. Mm-hmm. I love the kids that are learning language for the first time. I think they're the ones that they acquire the language very quickly, and then they fly. And I just love that. I have a story, actually yesterday, one of our little Chinese boys, kindergartner, when I was walking through the cafeteria, he came up and he stood in front of me, and he doesn't know English very well, but he looked at me and he said, ice cream. And I looked at him and I said, do you need help getting your ice cream? And he went like this. And so I took him over. We went through every single type of ice cream. I explained it to him. He was so excited. He picked an orange one. He was so excited. And I made a friend for life just through, being there when I was. The timing was perfect. And then I'd see him later on in the day, and he would wave at me and things like that. So building those relationships, I think, is what helps all kids, but especially helps the kids that are struggling with the language.
It's a wonderful school that you're in.
It's
Mohegan
amazing.
School is a wonderful school. There's no doubt about it.
Lori Karen couldn't have left me in a better place.
Well, that's quite the statement.
Yes.
For Lori to think about if she sees this.
I've told her that. I've told her that because we were still in contact. I've had, the great thing is, I was hired in March, and I had time to spend time at the school with Lori. She's been more than accommodating as far as leaving me notes, talking to me, emailing, things like that. I received an email from her the first day when I met with staff, pretty much saying, like, good luck, they're there to help you, keep that in mind. I shared that with my staff because they were still thinking of her, and she was certainly thinking of us.
Excellent. Now, it sounds like a lot of your experiences, not only in growing up in Connecticut, but also teaching down in Montgomery County, Maryland, has really molded you into the perfect fit at Mohegan School. And I don't know if you've been in the position long enough to have a vision for where you would like to see Mohegan School go in your tenure. Mm-hmm. But maybe you could give our viewers something of a feel for what you're thinking for Mohegan School, maybe in the near future as well as the far future. Well,
near future, like I said before, Lori Karen left me in such a good place with, she had already empowered her teachers to be leaders in the building. And there's never just one leader. I think there's leadership in every area that you go in. I certainly want to continue that. I want to empower people to know that they're vital to our school and that they're part of the leadership team. And I can give you an example of that. Our school psychologist, very good about proactive, getting out there with the kids, walking with the kids. She has a very established walking program where when the kids need time out of the classroom, she walks with them, but it's proactive, which I like, which means those kids, because she's putting in the energy at this point, aren't ending up coming to me for like an office referral or for a disciplinary reason. I have my head teacher, Mr. Larson. He's very much taking care of like the bus referrals and things like that. So because he's built his own leadership capacity in that area, they don't end up becoming to the point that the principal has to be involved. I want to continue that. I think there are other areas where we can continue people to feel like you have that power, you have that capacity. We all bring our own strengths, and I want those strengths to be developed. So that's sort of my whole school staff idea. The other piece is, of course, the kid piece, which is the most important. That's why we're there. As we continue to become more diverse, both socially and culturally, I want to make sure we're reaching all of those kids. And part of that is, I think sometimes we hold certain kids accountable, but not all kids accountable. And we have to start holding every single child accountable for their own learning. And a piece of that is I've already sort of introduced this random calling strategies. I'm sure you've heard about that as a teacher. Being able to go into a classroom and getting away from the kids that raise their hands. Because research shows that the kids that raise their hands are usually the ones that are learning the most because they're the most actively involved in the classroom. I want to start seeing no hand raising at some point, and kids being called on and knowing that they could be called on at any time. And that's where the random calling comes in. So you give kids a chance to, like you and I would talk, and then we would know that that teacher could call on either of us.
Right.
And we could either share what we discussed or what like I could share what you discussed, and we're still part of that learning process. I don't want kids sitting back and not being active. So it's empowering my teachers to know, that's a cultural change, and I know that's going to take time.
It'll take time, but I know that the teachers at Mohegan School will see that as a benefit to use in their strategy in the classroom. So
Right.
it's excellent.
And some of them have already taken off with it,
Yeah.
and it's great to see, and they're like, I cannot believe some of the kids that have never spoken all year are already knowing that they can now have a voice, and that's very important.
Well, Allison, it's really quite evident that all of the experiences that you have had in your professional training and whatnot has made you a perfect fit for Mohegan School.
Thank you.
And I think that Mohegan School is very lucky to have you as their principal.
Thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
feel very fortunate to be here.
And thank you for being on the set today.
Okay.
That finishes another segment of Eye on Education, all things educational in the town of Montville. Thank you for viewing us today, and I hope that you'll keep us on your schedule for future programs. My name is Dave Rowley. Good day.